Hi, Eulogio. So let's take a look at what you've written here. Looks interesting. You've got the 2014 World Food Consumption. All right, let's see what you wrote. The pie chart shows the shares of total world food consumption held by each of 7 different food types in 2014. The pie chart illustrates the allocation of total global food utilization covered by each of 7 kinds of food in 2014. Okay, this is fine. I think you could have simplified it even further. So you could have said covered by 7 kinds of foods. This each of is really unnecessary. It just kind of makes it kind of cumbersome, really, just kind of not really easy to understand. So let's try it again. The pie chart illustrates the allocation of total global food. Well, do you really need total and global? So let's try it one more time. The pie chart illustrates the allocation of total food utilization globally uh, by 7 kinds of foods in 2014. I think that's a better introduction. Okay, let's see what you did further down. There were 2 kinds of foods that not had utilized. Had utilized what? You need an object here. So that were utilized largely in 2014, namely meat and fish. You can't use respectively here because this is only appropriate if you include the data. So if you had said, namely meat and fish at 31.4 and 27.9% respectively, that would have made sense. But using respectively here doesn't help you because you're not referring to their figures. So rice and bread were the least consumed globally among the 7 types of food. There was an average intake for cereals, vegetables, and fruits. What does that mean, an average? What is the average? You have to tell us this. Okay. Meat utilization was 31.4%, and followed by fish with 27.9% of a global utilization. The average consumed foods were cereals with 11.7%, vegetables with 10.5%, and fruits with 10.6%. Rice and bread were the least utilized food in 2014, and they were below 6%. Okay. Overall, as is illustrated in the chart, there was a huge gap of food utilization between meat and fish compared to rice and bread. It further illustrated that even vegetables, cereals, and fruits were less consumed compared to meat and fish. Okay, let's see. So, a couple of things that I want to bring up here is vocabulary. You kept using the word utilization over and over again. So, you've got it. Let's see if I can just really, really fast. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. And you don't really need to use this word. You could have used consumption, or you could have used a synonym for consumption, or you could have used a derivative of consumption. Utilization and consumption are not 100% the same thing. It might seem like a fine difference, but there is a difference because utilization is just using it. So, for example, using it to, I don't know, plant other, like, how can I say this? If you plant like the seeds of a fruit, right? You're utilizing it, but you're not necessarily consuming the fruit. So these are not the same things. Utilizing something is using it, whereas consuming it is actually eating it and ingesting it. So they're not synonyms. So you probably should not have used utilization so widely. It's not the right word here. You could have used consumption. You are allowed to use it, all right? So don't feel like you have to 100% use a different word. But what you could have done is, as I said, used synonyms, or you could have used derivatives of consume. So here you could have said consumption, and then elsewhere you could have said Meat was consumed at 31.4%. Okay, and followed by fish with 27% of global consumption. So that would have been okay. You don't need to reinvent the wheel with these tasks, task ones. I know a lot of people feel that they have to absolutely change all the vocabulary in the task. That's just not the case. What you're supposed to do, let me explain to you a little bit. What you're supposed to do is not copy this language here. You're not supposed to copy it word for word. You're not supposed to copy chunks of it. So if you use the word consumption, it's okay because it's actually in the chart. So that's what I'm trying to point out to you. So utilization was not the right word here. Consumption would have been a better word. You were allowed to use it, so don't be afraid to do so. Okay, just avoid, using pieces of this directly. So that was one thing. Now, the next thing that I want to talk to you about was your organization and, primarily your organization. So I wasn't really a huge fan of this paragraph because it's like you had this, right? You had these sentences here, and then you gave us the details. So I didn't feel like this was a particularly logical way to do this. This whole paragraph is supposed to be your detail paragraph. Um, Theoretically, we recommend having two of these. So you should have given data here, and then you should have given data again here. I just felt like you should have integrated this half of the paragraph with this half of the paragraph better. Perhaps you were worried that doing so would not have gotten you to 150 words. And that may be the case. But if that's the case, then what you want to do is you want to do some grouping. Like, for example, I think it would be really interesting if you were to say, for example, that meat and fish together made well over 50% of the global food consumption. Okay. And the remaining, let's see, 5 categories made up the remaining 50%, or even less than that. So that's an interesting thing to do. So you could start off a paragraph saying something like that, and then you can get into the details. Okay. Or looking at this really kind of casually, let me just do my math here really fast. Give me a second. So this is 28%. You could have said that these three together made up 2/3 of the global food consumption. Okay. And then you could say that the remaining 4 categories made up the remaining 1/3. And then you could talk about this you can talk about this 2/3, what it was made up of. You can give some more details, and then you can talk about that. So, but I didn't really like the way this was organized, as I said. So really task 1 is about grouping. It's about editing. It's about knowing what to include and what not to include. So I wanted to see this paragraph a little better. And this was okay, although I really kind of felt like it was essentially a rewriting of what you had written here. So perhaps you could have said something else for your overview. Perhaps you could have said that meat was the most consumed product globally, whereas rice was the least consumed. That would have been absolutely fine. That would have been an appropriate overview rather than rephrasing a lot of what you said. So that's my feedback for this. I know we have a task 2 as well, so let's look at that. All right, so here we have the task 2 about international marketing. Let's see what you wrote here. Worldwide promotion is somewhat thought of as trespass and interfering into a nation and doubting. Some groups debate it as an essential and economical way of learning, aside from sharing of ideas, language, and tradition. It's an idea which has a good side and a negative one. Okay, so what you've got here is a couple of different things. On the whole, it's okay, but it's not the kind of introduction that's going to score you a very, very, very high score. This is the wrong word here. You don't say into a nation and doubting. That makes no sense. As does this. It also doesn't work. As trespass. We don't say that. I know that you're trying to rephrase the word intrusion, but this is not an appropriate rephrasing. You could say disruption. That would have been all right. Let's see. Worldwide promotion of what? So this again is not clear. Again, I see that you're trying to rephrase some of the language from the prompt, but sometimes these efforts to rephrase really just create a lack of clarity rather than show, a wide range of vocabulary here. So you could have just said international marketing is somewhat thought of as disruptive and interfering into a nation. I have no idea what the. Oh, you know what I think you did? I think you literally rephrased the words here because I'm looking at the structure of this sentence and this sentence. When they say in question, they mean the country that we're looking at, the country of concern. So that's what I think is happening. I think you really literally tried to rephrase the words, and that is not such a great idea. You're actually supposed to rephrase the entire sentence, rewrite it with different grammar, with different structures. That would have been the ideal here. Okay. Let's see. Some groups debate it as an essential and economical way of learning aside from sharing of ideas. Okay, fine. Then here, this is not enough. You're telling us it's an idea which has a good side and a negative one, but you're not telling us your opinion. Not really here. You essentially have to tell us which one you're more in favor of, even if it's just slightly. Like, even if the scale swings 51-49, you're still supposed to tell us what you're in favor of, okay? So you could have said something like, it is an idea that, despite any negative points, on the whole is positive. So that's the kind of thing you want to do here. All right, let's continue. In my view, worldwide promotion is not a synonym for international marketing. So, in my view, international marketing is an essential practice in marketing nowadays, considering that the world is growing rapidly and new technologies have been introduced and are being practiced by companies and institutions. We have to adapt and follow the new trend to be competitive. I strongly believe that international marketing is not interfering into a nation's way of business because each country has regulations being imposed to protect its interest in doing business with other countries. For instance, Lazada is operating business in our country, and they also operate their business online, yet they do not trespass and interfere with our local businesses because they follow the rules of marketing in the country that are set by the government. Another reason is that local businessmen know that a new form of marketing nowadays is online, which everybody can join into the platform to market their product. Okay, so here I feel like you're trying to talk about this idea of invasion and intrusion, but there are some things that aren't really clear. Where is this idea of new ideas, of culture, of language? There's nothing about that here. All you're saying is no, 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 there is no invasion or intrusion. So you haven't really covered the areas that they've asked you to talk about. There's nothing about education. Okay, so it feels to me like this is really off topic. All right, or it's not really closely tied to what you've been asked to talk about. Let's take a look at the next paragraph. The negative side that I can see of welcoming international marketing into the country is that you cannot see the real product at first after you bought it. Okay. It is a disaster if the product you bought is not genuine as you are expecting it to be, and very frustrating if the product is very expensive. It will happen in any form of product which is being promoted online. It is time consuming to return it and may add another cost of sending it back. It is more disgusting if the products are services or education that you cannot return anymore without them, but to accept without choice. Okay, here, Eulogio, this is really off topic. Um, it's I feel like you've misunderstood what's happening here. I feel like you're talking just about online marketing and online advertisements, and that's not what international marketing is all about. So, what you need to gain here is a little understanding of what we mean by international marketing, because all of this development is really kind of showing a misunderstanding of international marketing. Um, so, a lot of this really, really felt off topic to me. And so that's a problem. You also had quite a few word errors, and those two are going to take your score down um, to a pretty good degree, I would say. Um, let's see. Yeah, and then there's grammar too, and much frustrating, and then more disgusting. These are really wrong words, and then you had a them in here that you didn't need. So there are errors here throughout this paragraph that are problematic. Let's look at your conclusion. To conclude, international marketing has a good side and also a negative side. It is up to us how we can avoid and mitigate the risk of dealing with it. We don't say a good advice because advice is uncountable, so it should not take an article. It should just say a piece of good advice to avoid the negative side of dealing with worldwide marketing is to do your good research. No, is to do your research of the product, its company, and feedback from the other end users with an S. Okay, so again, some awkwardness. I like that you used word like mitigate the risk. That was really nice. But again, you had some problems with grammar here. So those are the things I really want you to be aware of. Um, So, Eulogio, it's a good attempt. I see some nice elements here, but there's definitely work that absolutely has to be done in order to take you into a higher range of band scores. I saw errors with vocabulary, I saw errors with grammar, I also saw errors with task achievement, that a lot of this was really off topic. There's definitely a misunderstanding of the task. So I would certainly like to see more tasks from you, more work from you. I'd like to see you enrolled in the online course. I think you'll find that super helpful. It'll take your writing to totally other level. So that would probably be the ideal choice for you. See if that's something that you can take part in. If you can join the course, I think it would be really helpful. And I look forward to seeing more essays from you in the near future. Good luck.